Hey guys, what's Speed Communications? Welcome back to another review, this time of the 2014 film Birdman, aka The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. And this film is also the winner of Best Picture at the Oscars, and I can't say I disagree with that. And anyway, this is my honest thoughts on Birdman. If you had happened to have seen my other review, well, that wasn't really my honest thoughts on the film because that was just thoughts on the movie literally a month or two after I saw it. So I watched it again recently on Blu-ray and I was enthralled and really captivated by this film. And I would have to say it wasn't disappointing. It wasn't a letdown. It was actually it was actually one of the most unique and interesting films I've seen in a long time. It is definitely an experience, and it's an experience I enjoyed. There's some things about it that I'm kind of iffy on, but I'm willing to deal with, and I'll get to those a little bit later. But overall, I thought this was a amazing, brilliant film that I can see why it's divided some audiences though, because it's not a film for everybody. So it's not a typical crowd pleaser. It's not a popcorn film, and it is technically an art house movie, but I also think it's a really clever film. It's really well written. It has some of the best performances acting wise I've seen in the longest time. It's a tour de force for Michael Keaton. This is this is his this is pretty much his film. This is Michael Keaton's best performance to date, in my opinion. Uh, he's just so many things about this performance is amazing. Eddie Redmayne did a great job uh, as Hawking and Theory of Everything, but after watching this again, I honestly think Michael Keaton was robbed of the best actor because there's so many different facets that he adds to this performance. It's not just Eddie Redmayne did an amazing job, not taking anything away from him. But what Keaton did, he took a completely original character and he played not only one part, not only one character, but he played multiple different characters. He played a struggling actor who was dealing with trying to struggle with his own ego, dealing with being forgotten about, dealing with trying to regain acceptance in the world that he lives in, trying to regain self-respect as well as respect from his peers. But at the same time, he also plays other roles. He plays the voice in his head. He plays Birdman, this hallucination he sees that's going on that he sees while he's going through his mental breakdown. Regan Thompson is a multifaceted character with multiple different nuances to his performance, and Michael Keaton nailed all of them. And that is not an easy thing to do. And that shows how great Keaton is and how much of an underrated, amazing actor he always has been. So it's really too bad he didn't win Best Actor, but congrats to Eddie Redmayne. But the film did win Best Picture, it won Best Director, it won Best Cinematography. So it did win a series of awards that I would say it definitely did deserve. And overall, I think some of the people who don't like the film. It's just not their cup of tea. It's just not their type of movie. And so they look at all the praise and they just get kind of upset about it. And I tend to be the kind of guy who's like that. Okay, if a movie's super praised, like I want to be the guy to see, okay, is it really worth it? Is this movie really worth all the hype and all the praise? And I gotta be honest, after seeing it again, yes, it is. It's one of the most unique films I've seen in the longest time. It's it's brilliant. It is a brilliant film. From the performances to the cinematography to its story to the way that it's edited definitely because to the one shot one take setup, which just makes the film stand out from a majority of other films of its caliber. People say it's just another Black Swan. I highly disagree. I think this is a much better film than the Black Swan, and it's also it's got Keaton. And I'm a huge fan of Michael Keaton, and he just knocks it out of the park in this film. So anyway, and also I don't think it's pretentious. After watching it again, I think it's the complete opposite. I think it's a satire of these pretentious art house films. It's a little bit of a subtle satire, but it's a satire nonetheless. Because you have scenes in the film like where Mike Shiner, Edward Norton's character, he says a line of dialogue like this: "Popularity is a slutty little cousin of prestige." And instead of the film pointing at that moment being grand and a moment of grand revelation, you right after Edward Norton says that, Michael Keaton replies with this: "What the hell does that mean?" Which means that the film itself is kind of poking fun at these pretentious sort of comments and pretentious writing that you see in a lot of films of these art house movies. You have the whole scenes of dialogue where you have Edward Norton saying that the theater critic Tabitha looks like she licked a homeless man's ass. You have these kind of vulgar, kind of childish insults, and you have scenes where Michael Keaton is running around in his underwear in Times Square. It's it's not nearly as pretentious, in my opinion, as some people look at it to be. And I know in my other review I said it. I don't. After watching it again, I understood more things. I got more things that I didn't the first time around, or maybe I did the first time around, but I didn't remember because I reviewed the film the first time around. I reviewed it a week. I reviewed it a month after I saw it. So no wonder I couldn't remember anything. But with this film, this is a movie that there's a lot of different things going on and there's a lot of things happening. And it is a movie I think you gotta watch more than once, maybe to really appreciate all the subtle nuances and to understand sort of things and to finally get your own interpretation of what the film is trying to convey. And I think I finally understood some of these things in the film this time around. I think at the end of the day, I think the film's message it's trying to convey is it's a journey of trying to find self-respect and it's an honesty. That's what I look at it as. It's an honest look, uncovering, pulling off the covers, showing somebody for who they really are, not for who they're trying to act, not who they try to act to be, but who they really are, and also trying to find self-respect. And that's what Riggin is trying to do. Whether he believes that's his goal or not, his goal is to try to make a successful play, but in reality, he's searching for self-respect. And that's a word that's referenced multiple times in this film, the word self-respect. So I think that's kind of the main theme of the film for me is for these actors and for the people in this play, this Raymond Carver play, to gain respect through possibly maybe just through doing this play, what we talk about when we talk about love. Maybe it'll get them the self-respect that they're looking for, or maybe they're still going to keep searching. But that's kind of how I look at the film at its basis level is just a journey of searching for self-respect and also at the same time honesty is looking for an honest interpretation of their lives and so forth and what they should do in their lives and pull it's kind of like when Reagan takes off his wig, that's who he really is. It's definitely a soul searching kind of film. It's you even have the scene where Edward Norton is talking to Emma Stone and saying that you're big, that kind of thing. It's finding out who you really are on the inside, not who you are on the outside. Not taking off the masks, so to speak, and showing the real person underneath. So anyway, that's just a little bit of my interpretation of what the film is trying to convey. And anyway, the movie it did decent in the box office. It made $94.8 million on a $16.5 million budget. But this wasn't a film that was going to be a huge box office hit. It was there to be more for critical acclaim, and it got it. And I think it's well deserved. The direction by Alejandro Iñárritu is really, really good. The cinematography is superb by Emmanuel Lubezki. And what's interesting is I'm throwing out all these labels, and the film itself does a commentary on critics like myself who put labels on movies, and it's kind of in movies or plays or whatever, and it definitely does. Keaton, the whole scene is fantastic. I applauded in that scene where Keaton tears down the play critic Tabitha, and I will get to that scene later and try to do my best justice with it, but I won't be able to because I'm no Michael Keaton. But what I'm saying is here I am. I'm saying labels like it's superb and it's excellent, and it's this and that, and but can I really look at this pen, for instance, and look at it without labeling it? And I'd have to say I can. It's a pen. This is a pen. This is just a pen. So I can separate myself from labels. And I try not to do that as much as possible. I try to, at least if I'm going to label some things, I at least also try to point out things without labeling them. Just like saying the acting is great. Stuff like the editing and the way that everything is set up and the structure and the story. And I try to give credit to those sort of things or the score or so forth. I don't just try to say, okay, this is marginal, this is lame, this was whatever. I try to explain why it's lame or why it's marginal or why it's good or why it's great or why it's stellar. So I try to do that the best I can, but sometimes I'm not able to. And much like a lot of other critics, I end up labeling things because I can't seem to be able to just explain why I'm using that label. So yeah, but going back to the direction, why is it really good? Well, Alejandro Gianarotto's direction is really good to me because he does it in one take. There are a few shots in the film that are cuts, but one take, and that's a really tough task to pull off. And even while Iñárritu was talking, if I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly or not, but I apologize if I'm not, but Iñárritu, he was talking to Mike Nichols, the director of Chinatown and films like Wolf with Jack Nicholson, and he was telling him about his idea for Birdman. It was going to be this one shot, one take film. And Mike Nichols was like, I don't know about that. That's really a tough task. But I'd be interested in seeing it. And Iñárritu pulled it off. And it must not have been easy. He structured everything like he was choreographing a play. Which is kind of it's ironic because the film is about the creation of a play. And so it's about the behind the scenes inner workings of a play and what deals with the cast and crew and the members and so forth. And it's choreographed. The film itself is choreographed just like the play is. And I thought it's staged just like a play is. And I thought that's another thing that makes the film stand out from a lot of other movies. It's not like it's the first film to ever do a one take thing. I mean, there's some other art films I think have done that before, but this just took that into a whole nother category because it wasn't just limited in like, for example, the one film I could think of, I don't remember the name of it, but it was shot in one take, and it was this Russian, it was a throwback to the era of the Russian dynasty, and they were doing this big grand ball, and the filmmaker, he shot the whole film just about what's going on in this one ball all in one take. But it's all in one enclosed space. In Birdman, it's all over the place. It's in the theater, it's outside the theater, it's in Times Square, it's in Reagan's dressing room, it's in this other person's dressing room, it's up the stairs, it's down the hallway, it's on the stage, it's outside the stage. It's all over the place. So it's not just strictly in one confined space. This is a one shot, one take film that's going all over the place, which is an incredible accomplishment for not only the director Alejandro Iñárritu, who definitely deserved Best Director for this, but also for the cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki for being able to deal with this as well, because this is not an easy task, and those two teamed up together and did a brilliant job. And going back to why I think the cinematography is brilliant, explaining why I think the cinematography is brilliant. Well, I think the cinematography is brilliant in this film because Emmanuel Lubezki does an amazing job of lighting. He does an amazing job with making these one-shot takes last. Making these one-shot takes just magical, especially with that. There's this one scene I remember in particular that I just think was gorgeous, and it's when Riggin is going to get some liquor at a liquor store, and he goes to this liquor store, and the way that this is shot, the lighting, it's just all it is just basically it's light up peppers, lighted chili pepper lights. But the way that it's shot, it just looks so magical. It looks like something out of a fantasy film. It's so ethereal and so beautiful, and Rickon goes in, gets his liquor, and then it looks like he's walking into another world because of the way that it's shot. And that's a huge testament to the cinematography, as well as the lighting and so forth. The cinematography and the directing just gave this film this unique, ethereal, just really strange strange and surreal, but at the same time inviting feel to the film. That it is at the same time as strange, it's surreal, it's kind of off-putting, but at the same time you're drawn in. It draws you in. It gravitates you towards the film, and it's very impressive, the direction and the cinematography. And even the screenplay. I mean, the screenplay is written by Alejandro Iñárritu, Nicholas Giacobone, Alexander Dina Lars Jr., and Amanda Bow. That's four people, and they all do a great job with some really memorable lines of dialogue and some really great bits of satire, and they do a great job taking this story and bringing it to the now. Bringing this story to 2014, making it current by adding references to Facebook and Twitter and so forth and YouTube, and sort of adding other trends and current words, slang terms and words, and like going viral and so forth. It really makes the film stand out, because this is a film that, yeah, in the future might be a bit dated because it is trying to be more trendy and more current with the now. But I respect the film for doing that, because it ends up resonating more with me and with an audience, because it is making an attempt to do that. It's it's a film that's taking place in the here and the now, and you're able to relate to it that much more because of that. And then, of course, I'd be remiss without mentioning the cast, which is an amazing cast. You got Michael Keaton, who originally Iñárritu maybe might have thought of somebody else, but ultimately, in a short period of time, he settled with Keaton because he understood his brilliance as an actor. He was one of the few people who knew that Keaton is just an amazing actor, an amazing performer, and he could pull off everything that he wanted for this role, these different facets of the role, and be able to show the uglier, sort of not as pleasing or palatable sides of themselves to the screen. You could just be open and open himself up to the audience. And he thought that he would be good for that. Keaton would be a good choice for that. Um, because he thought that he could handle the demands of the stage, up close work, and comedy and empathy with a profound depth to both. And he's definitely right. And Keaton, at first, he was like, I don't know about this, because he wanted to make sure that he wasn't trying to make fun of him because of his role in the Batman films. But once you read the script some more, Keaton really was drawn to the script, and he agreed to do it. And just like, in a way, his character, there's a lot of interesting parallels with this film and Keaton's own life, which I thought was interesting. Definitely makes it a bit meta, and I think that was the point. But to do it in a respectful way, to not make fun of Keaton, but do it in a respectful way. I mean, there's some jokes and so forth that are pretty funny, but it's respectful enough. And so you have Michael Keaton, and that alone was enough for me to be sold on the film. But then you have Edward Norton, who plays Mike Shiner. Michael Keaton plays Regan Thompson. Mike Shiner plays Edward Norton, who's this acclaimed Broadway actor. Emma Stone plays Samantha Thompson, Regan's daughter, and in an amazing performance where she's able to stretch her acting muscles and show that she isn't just basically show that she isn't just, for example, Gwen Stacy. So she can do different types of roles. Naomi Watts comes in and is supporting roles. Leslie Truman, an actress for the play, and Mike Shiner's former girlfriend, and she has a lot of good moments. Zach Galifianakis plays Jake, Regan's lawyer and friend, and the film manages to do the near impossible and make Zach Galifianakis tolerable and actually pretty decent for the role. I mean, I don't. Zach Galifianakis can get on my nerves really quickly, and this film managed to balance that out to make it so he's not really, for example, the annoying asshole that he can be. He found a way to make him more tolerable, and that's no easy feat. And Andrea Riseborough plays Laura Auburn. She's got this personality that's really nice to see, but she's kind of a strange character, and I kind of can't really grasp her because she plays Regan's girlfriend, but there's a scene where she and Naomi Watts just make out, and I don't get this lesbian scene. I don't understand it, but that's just that's just me. And then you have Amy Ryan, who plays Sylvia Thompson, Regan's ex-wife, and she's amazing in just a few scenes. She just does an amazing job. And then you have Lindsay Duncan, who plays Tabitha Dickinson. Once again, a very short role, but very memorable because of her performance. She plays the top theater critic that Keaton dresses down in a memorable scene later in the film. Now, now I'm going to be getting into spoilers, pretty much going into the plot, and then I'm going to be mentioning a few quotes here and there that I really liked, and then I'll give my thoughts on the film. I'll give what I thought worked. Of course, I already gave you a bunch of things that worked, but I'll recap some of those things and then talk about what didn't work. And that's what I'm going to try to do more often in reviews, is I'm trying to talk about, okay, what worked, what didn't. Instead of just doing the plot for 20 minutes, let's talk about what worked, what didn't. We can talk about a little bit about the behind the scenes process as well, but just go over the plot real quick, give some memorable quotes, then talk about what worked and what didn't work about the film, then give my final rating. But anyway, the basic gist of the plot is this. Regan Thompson, played by Michael Keaton, is a washed-up Hollywood actor who's famous for playing the superhero Birdman in a series of blockbuster movies decades earlier. And in this film, he actually made a Birdman 3, and that was the last Birdman film that he made. But what's interesting is that with Batman, he didn't make Batman Forever. He turned that down. And so I thought that was kind of interesting is that in this universe, the actor that Keaton is playing played the superhero in the third film. But in real life, Keaton didn't do the third movie. So Regan is tormented by the voice of Birdman, who mocks and criticizes him, and he sees himself performing feats of levitation and telekinesis. The film even opens up right off the bat with a really surreal, strange opening sequence. You see Keaton in his underwear levitating off the ground, and then you hear this dark, scratchy Birdman voice saying, this place smells like balls. It was like, this place smells like balls. It's like, what do we do? What are we doing here? How did we get here? You know, this place smells like balls. You know, it was kind of reminded me a little bit of sort of the voice and the personality that Keaton would use for Beetlejuice and so forth. But yeah, just right off the bat, you're like, okay, what is going on here? And then you figure out that Regan hopes to reinvent his career by writing, directing, and starring in a Broadway adaptation of Raymond Carver's short story, What We Talk About When We Talk About Love. And he wants to do a Raymond Carver story because Raymond Carver wrote him a little note on a cocktail napkin and gave it to him when he was a young actor that said, "Thanks for an honest performance." And so Keaton's character, Riggin, wants to give that back to Carver, so to speak. So the play is produced by Riggin's best friend and lawyer, Jake, played by Zach Galifianakis, and it also stars Riggin's girlfriend, lawyer, lawyer? Yeah, her name is Lawyer. Riggin's girlfriend, Laura, played by Andrea Riseborough, and the first-time Broadway actress, Leslie, which is one of her biggest dreams to be on Broadway, played by Naomi Watts. Riggin's daughter, Samantha, played by Emma Stone, is also a recovering addict, and she serves as his assistant. And there's a scene early in the film where she calls Riggin via Skype. And so I'm so used to the Skype noise, the sound that Skype makes when you get an incoming call. Like the first time I saw this film, I was like, "Who's calling me? Who? What?" Because I was like, "Is Matt calling me? I'm watching a movie, man. I don't what." So it was kind of funny. It was fun to hear the Skype phone call noise in a film because that's something I relate to. Is because I use Skype a lot with my friends and so forth. So that was kind of a nice little touch among a lot of other nice little touches in this film. And so so during rehearsals, a light fixture falls onto this actor named Ralph, who Riggin hates anyway, and Jake agrees is ineffective. And Riggin tells Jake he caused the light to fall so he could replace Ralph. And the film has these surreal scenes and the editing that makes it look like Riggin has powers. And so it's up to interpretation, but I interpret it as he doesn't have powers. This is just all in his head. This is an example of the mental breakdown that is on its way into his life. There's a psychosis building inside of his head, and this is an example of it. Uh, I think there's definitely scenes later in this film that explain this pretty well, in my opinion. Like later in the film when he's just frustrated with Birdman, he's telling him to shut up. This voice in my head, shut up, shut up, shut up. You're annoying. Shut up. And he won't shut up, and so he gets frustrated, and he throws the Birdman poster across the wall, and rips a bunch of stuff up, and tears his dressing room apart, and that the stuff moving things telekinetically with his mind is just the director's way in a more unique way to show his reactions, to show his actions um, as a result of his psychosis. So maybe in his head he's doing this, but in reality he's not, because we see what Zach Galifianakis would see later in the film, or we see what other people would see, that he's just tearing this stuff up himself. He's not doing it with his mind. He's not actually flying. He's not actually doing any of this. It's all in his head. And later in the film, I think the stuff where he's flying around, I think it's just a daydream or hallucination or something that's going on that he's dealing with. Um, Maybe because he drank too much, he's having one of those sort of, maybe he's still drunk, maybe, I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I don't, at the same time, it's kind of not as concrete. So it's a way of artistic expression by the director, but at the same time, I'm like, you could kind of explain it a little bit better. Maybe we don't need the superpower stuff. I think the film would be just as effective if you didn't have him moving stuff with his mind or floating, or you could have the scene where he flies around, but around the city, or he levitates or whatever, but you explain it as just it's kind of just him daydreaming or imagining this because it's a way for him to get away from what's going on in his head, which is not necessarily a good thing because he's starting to have a mental breakdown. And so yeah, it's just how I interpreted these sequences as. But anyway, so he hates this guy Ralph, so he gets rid of him, and he isn't very good. So at Leslie's suggestion, Riggin replaces Ralph with a brilliant but volatile method actor, Mike Shiner. And before, he didn't want to get Mike Shiner because he's asking for other people. He's trying to get other actors. And it was like, this is another way that it references the Now, which I like, where Reagan's talking with Jake, and he's like, just find me an actor. A good actor. Give me Woody Harrelson. He's doing the next Hunger Games. Michael Fassbender? He's doing the prequel to the X-Men prequel. What about Jeremy Renner? Who? Jeremy Renner. He was nominated. He was the Hurt Locker guy. Okay, he's an Avenger. Fuck, they put him in a cape too? So that was kind of fun. And there's even like fun scenes where the press interviews Riggin, and they're talking to him, and they're asking him some stuff about it. And I find this pretty funny, where just trying to find the line where they're talking to him. They're asking about, what's going on in Twitter. Just trying to find the line here. Excuse me. Here's this. So this press, this woman from the press, Claire, is talking to Riggin, and she's like, "Now, is it true that you've been injecting yourself with semen from baby pigs?" Sorry, what? As a method of facial rejuvenation. Where'd you read that? It was tweeted by @prostate whisperers. No, that's not true. I know, but did you do it? No, I didn't do it. Okay, then I'll just write that you're denying it. No, don't write anything. Why would you write anything? I didn't. Don't write what she said. I thought that was kind of fun. This whole sort of. Is it true that you use baby semen for facial rejuvenation? No, I didn't do that. Don't write anything. Just don't. So it was another reference to the digital age, the age of social media. And what's ironic about the film is that the film itself has Keaton plays this actor named Regan Thompson, who's separated from the times, who doesn't do Twitter. He's not on Twitter. He's not on Facebook. But in reality, Keaton's on Twitter. Keaton's on Facebook. Keaton's on Instagram. Keaton's everywhere. Keaton had so many Facebook friends that he had to create another account so people could follow him. So I thought it was kind of fun. Kind of a little bit of ironic, a little bit of irony there that I thought was interesting. So Leslie decides, okay, let's get Mike Shiner. And of course, even, Keaton's like, who is this guy? Does he sell tickets? And then, of course, Jake is like, just ask me if he sells tickets. I'm going to find this one line. Because that was kind of fun. Because it was just more of these. Of course, actually, before that, I like this moment where Riggins talking about the guy, Ralph, who got hit in the head with the stage light. He's like, that guy is the worst actor I've ever seen in my life. The blood coming out of his ear was the most honest thing he's done so far. Jake's like, it's not that bad. Okay. He was fucking terrible. And here's the whole thing. Jake's asking Riggin if Mike sells tickets. It's like, ask me if he sells tickets. Does he sell tickets? A shitload of tickets. Now ask me if the critics like him. Do they like him? They want to spooge on him. And then Riggin's indicating there was a lady in the room. He's like, hey. And Jake's like, Leslie. And then Leslie comes in and she's like, right on his face. And then it's like, how do you know Mike? It's like, we share a vagina. So that was kind of funny. Fun line of dialogue. And then you have the whole. So now they got Mike Shiner, but he's definitely volatile, and Reagan has to end up refinancing his house to fund his contract. And the first previews go disastrously because Mike breaks his character over the replacement of his gin with water and attempts to have sex with Leslie during a sex scene, which is really insane because he can't. And I like this sort of aspect of this character. He can't get it up in real life. Mike can only get it up on stage. He can't get it up in real life. So of course he's asking Leslie. It's like, Leslie, play with my balls. So she's like, no, I'm not gonna let you fuck me in front of all these people. And so he completely loses it. And even before all this, they're practicing this. And I like the scene where Mike and Riggin are meeting up and they're talking about their play. And I relate to this because I've been in acting classes. I've taken acting classes. I've done a lot of this kind of stuff, and I've been in a musical theater play, so I know what kind of goes on behind the scenes and how crazy it can kind of be. And so I definitely do relate to what's going on with this between Mike and Mike and Riggin, where Mike's talking about the play. He's like, okay, give me a cue again. And Riggin's like, okay, hey, I'm the wrong person to ask. Hey, I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't actually know the man. I've heard his name mentioned in passing. I don't know. You'd have to know the particulars. I think what you're saying. Hey, can I make a suggestion? Do you mind? Yeah. Yeah, sure. No, not at all. Okay, just stay with me. I'm the wrong person to ask, he says, but what is that? What is the intention of that? Is he fed up with the subject, so he's changing it? Is he deflecting guilt over the marriage? And here's the thing: you've got 4 lines that all say the same thing. I didn't even know the man. I only heard his name mentioned in passing. I wouldn't know. You'd have to know the particulars. The point is, you don't know the guy. We fucking get it. Make it work with 1 line. I didn't even know the man. Right? Right. Yeah. You know my lines too, huh? Can we not get hung up on knowing lines? Which I dealt with that with an acting partner I had. He was trying to control the situation, and I reacted the same way. I'm like, you know my lines too? And like he almost had the same reaction. He was like, so? I'm like, is that really a big deal? I'm like, dude, you're not playing this character. I am. So, man, what the hell? So I thought it was kind of fun. And so you have that whole sort of thing. And then they end up Riggin, of course, is not happy with the fact that he's drinking real gin. That's not something that because he's waiting for his cue during Mike's scene, and Riggin's like, he's good, huh? And then Annie, who works behind the scenes, she's like, he's incredible. I think he's drinking real gin. And of course, he doesn't like that, because they're not supposed to be doing that. That's taking it a bit too far. And so he gets pretty pissed when he takes his gin away in a pretty good sequence. He just ruins the preview. This is how the preview gets ruined, because Mike Shiner just lets the shit go to his head. And he's all like, is this water? Did you replace my gin with water, man? Mike, come on. No, come on. What? Come on, you're drunk. I'm drunk? Yes, I'm drunk. I'm supposed to be drunk. Why aren't you drunk? It's his Carver. He left a piece of his liver on the table every time he wrote a fucking page. If I need to be drinking gin, who the fuck are you to touch my gin, man? Listen, you fuck with the period, you fuck with the plot so you can have the best lines, you leave me with the fucking tools that I need, and oh, come on, people. Don't be so pathetic. Stop looking at the world through your cell phone screens. Have a real experience. Does anybody give a shit about the truth other than me? I mean, this set is fake. The bananas are fake. There's fucking nothing in this milk carton. And your performance is fake. And the only thing that is real on this stage is this chicken. So I want to work with the chicken. So I thought that was pretty funny too. Because I want to work with the chicken. So and then Riggin gets upset about that later. It's like, that's you, Mike. You're Mr. Natural. Mr. Fuck the scene, just stare at my massive heart on, right? That's the truth of the moment. Did you think it was massive? And then they kind of end up, then they walk outside, they have this talk. That's when Mike mentions that popularity is a slutty little cousin of prestige. And then you even have a scene where Riggin ends up through sort of his wife was trying to get him to be there for his daughter a little bit more. And this is a scene where Emma Stone really stands out here. And Riggin's telling her about why this play is important to him. And he's upset at her because he found her with drugs again. And he's like, listen to me. I'm trying to do something important. This is not important. It's important to me. Alright? Maybe not to you or your cynical friends whose only ambition is go viral, but to me, this is, God, this is my career. This is my chance to do some work that actually means something. Means something to who? You had a career before the third comic book movie, before people began to forget who was inside the bird costume. You're doing a play based on a book that was written 60 years ago for 1,000 rich old white people whose only real concern is going to be where they go to have their cake and coffee when it's over. And let's face it, Dad, it's not for the sake of art. It's because you want to feel relevant again. Well, there's a whole world out there where people fight to be relevant every day. And you act like it doesn't even exist. Things are happening in a place you willfully ignore, a place that has already forgotten you. I mean, who are you? You hate bloggers, you make fun of Twitter, you don't even have a Facebook page. You're the one who doesn't exist. And you're doing this because you're scared to death, like the rest of us, that you don't matter. And you know what? You're right. You don't. It's not important. You're not important. Get used to it. So I thought that was actually a great performance by Emma Stone, and I don't know if I did that justice. It was a great, really, and it spoke to a lot of things that are going on in the film. You hear this a lot, this line a lot. It's in the Carver play. I don't exist. You don't exist. And my interpretation of this "you don't exist" sort of thing is you don't exist because the one part that doesn't exist is the kind of the ego. I think it's like the shattering of the ego later in the film, or the other side of him, the Birdman side, realizing that part doesn't exist. He has to get rid of that in order for him to fly again. That's kind of how I interpret that. But that's just my interpretation of it. And so you have that great scene, and then Riggin reads the early press coverage, and then he gets pissed that Mike has stolen the show. Another great scene where he goes in and he punches Mike in the face. And he's like, trying to fake me? Huh? Trying to fake me? And the whole thing where he great performance of Michael Keaton, where he just acts like, you know, and you know, the dad used to beat us, and he'd take out the belt. See, I can act too. You know, I thought that was pretty clever. And so that's a fun fun scene where they fight, and that was in the trailer, and that's pretty funny. And that was one of the funniest scenes in the film. And even after, I like this line of dialogue after Leslie is upset about Riggin trying, not really Riggin, it's because Riggin actually comforts her. He says, you know, I think you're doing great, you're important, and I'm glad to have you. And you're wonderful, and I'm glad to have you. And you have the whole, she's upset at Mike for trying to rape her on stage. And she talks to her friend, you know, Andrea Riseborough's character. And she's like, why don't I have any self-respect? You're an actress, honey. See, that's why I think a lot of the film, they're trying to find self-respect one way or another. And so there's always problems. Mike, he's pissed off that Mike stole the show. Jake encourages him to continue by basically lying to him, saying the Pope and Martin Scorsese are wanting to see it. He catches Samantha using pot. She has that moment that I mentioned earlier. And backstage during the final preview, Riggin sees Samantha and Mike flirting because they had this good scene where they interact with each other. They have this truth or dare moment. And he even says these kind of a line, like he says, like, what would you do? This kind of whole sort of thing where he's like trying to figure it out again. It's like Sam is asking Mike questions. He's like, I want to ask another question. He's like, you already did. One more. Go ahead. If you weren't afraid, what would you want to do to me? I'd pull your eyes out of your head. That's sweet. And put them in my own skull and look around so I could see the street the way I used to when I was your age. Which is kind of an interesting quote. And then he goes in, and then he has this great scene, Edward Norton. And he just dresses down Emma Stone's character. He dresses down Samantha, dresses down Sam, and he says, "You've been hanging around here trying to make yourself invisible behind this fragile little fuck-up routine, but you can't. You're anything but invisible. You're big. You're kind of a great mess. It's like a candle burning at both ends, but it's beautiful. No amount of booze or weed or attitude is going to hide that." And so then they sort of develop this relationship with each other. Riggins sees that. That sends him over the edge. He needs to calm down. So he then accidentally locks himself out of the theater, and that's where he has to walk in his underwear through Times Square to get back inside. And this is where amateur videos and incident go viral online. So he becomes viral. And then after the preview, Riggin runs into Tabitha Dickinson, played by Lindsay Duncan, who tells him that she hates Hollywood celebrities that pretend to be actors and promises to kill his play with a negative review without having even seen it. And then you have this amazing scene, I'm going to try to do it justice, where Keaton just dresses her down in a crowd-pleasing way, but in a way, it doesn't mean anything. But it's still a great sequence, even though everything that he said kind of doesn't really mean anything, because she can still do whatever the hell she wants to. But I think that's the point. So Tabitha here, she's like, "It doesn't matter. I'm going to destroy your play." But you didn't even see it. I mean, did I do something that offend you? As a matter of fact, you did. You took off space on a theater which otherwise might have been used on something worthwhile. Okay. Well, I mean, you don't even know if it's any good or not. I didn't. That's true. I haven't read a word of it or even seen the preview. But after the opening tomorrow, I'm going to turn in the worst review anyone has ever read, and I'm going to close your play. Would you like to know why? Because I hate you and everyone you represent. Entitled, selfish, spoiled children. Blissfully untrained, unversed, and unprepared for it to even attempt real art. Handing each other awards for cartoons and pornography? Measuring your worth in weekends? Well, this is the theater. And you don't get to come in here and pretend you can write, direct, and act in your own propaganda piece without coming through me first. So break a leg. Well, you know, what has to happen in a person's life to become a critic anyway? What do you write? Another review? Is that any good, is it? Did you even see it? Let me read. I will call the police. Call the police. Let's read. Lackluster. That's just labels. Marginality. You kidding me? Sounds like you need penicillin to clear that up. That's a label. That's all labels. You just label everything. That's so fucking lazy. You're a lazy fucker. You know what this is? Do you even know what this is? You don't. You know why? Because you can't see this thing if you don't have to label it. You mistake all those little noises in your head for true knowledge. Are you finished? No! I'm not finished! There's nothing in here about technique. There's nothing in here about structure. There's nothing in here about intentions. It's just a bunch of crappy opinions, backed up by even crappier comparisons. You write a couple of paragraphs, and you know what? None of this cost you fucking anything. You risk nothing. 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 I'm a fucking actor. This play cost me everything. So I tell you what. You take this fucked, malicious, cowardly, shitty written review, and you shove that right the fuck up your wrinkly, tight ass. You're no actor. You're a celebrity. Let's be clear on that. I'm going to kill your play. So that's just my interpretation of that scene. I'm sorry if I got upset, if I scared anybody, or if I blew anybody's eardrums out because of the feedback noise. But I got into it there because I don't know. I like acting. I do. I do enjoy that. And that's a great scene. I applauded. I was like, yeah, Keaton is a man. So anyway, but of course it didn't really mean anything. And he understands that. She's going to destroy his play no matter what he says. So he gets drunk. And then he passes out on the street, and then he hallucinates a conversation with Birdman, who tries to convince him to make another Birdman film. And then another great scene. And try to do justice. Where young Birdman's flying around talking to him. This is really, really well written too. And pokes the finger at some people who, not everybody doesn't like the movie feels this way, but a lot of people who didn't like it do kind of not like this movie because it isn't like this. And I thought this was a really clever scene because it pointed that out. It's a beautiful day. Forget about the times everyone else has. Come on, stand up. So you're not a great actor. Who cares? You're much more than that. You tower over these other theater douchebags. You're a movie star, man. You're a global force. Don't you get it? You spend your life building a bank account and a reputation, and you blew them both. Good for you. Fuck it. We'll make a comeback. They're waiting for something huge. We'll give it to them. Shave off that pathetic goatee. Get some surgery. 60's a new 30, motherfucker. You're the original. You paved the way for these other clowns. Give these people what they want. Old-fashioned apocalyptic porn. Birdman. The Phoenix Rises. Pimple-faced gamers creaming in their pants. 1 billion worldwide guaranteed. You are larger than life, man. You save people from their boring, miserable lives. You make them jump, laugh, shit their pants. All you have to do is... And then Reagan snaps his fingers, explosions occur, shooting stars, shoulders get shot, choppers fly all over the place. That's what I'm talking about. Bones rattling. Big, loud, fast. Look at these people. At their eyes, they're sparkling. They love this shit. They love blood. They love action. Not this talky, depressive, philosophical bullshit. Yes, the next time you screech, ah! It'll explode into millions of eardrums. You'll glimmer on thousands of screens around the globe. Another blockbuster. You are a god. And then Reagan starts floating. See? There you go, you motherfucker. Gravity doesn't even apply to you. Wait till you see the faces of those who thought we were finished. Listen to me. Let's go back one more time and show them what we're capable of. We have to end it on our own terms. With a grand gesture. Flames, sacrifice, Icarus. You can do it. You hear me? You are Birdman. So, that was just, once again, my best interpretation of that scene. I'm not going to show footage, but I could do my best interpretation of it. So that was a great scene. And so then he flies around the city, which was also kind of reminding me of the scenes in Hook, where the flying scenes is very graceful. It really was. But of course, I realized a lot of people have theory that he killed himself then, jumped off the building, and flying is what. No, because after he flies and he lands, he says, "Stop the music," the music is one thing I wanted to mention about the drum score by, he was a member of his band, a drummer from a band, Tony Sanchez. Excuse me. And it's not my favorite score, but it works with the film. I thought the drumming was another representation of Riggins' cracked psyche. And each time, when the drumming got more intense, it was representing the build-up and the coming mental breakdown. So I thought it worked for the film. But, I could do without it, but at the same time, it worked for the film. But anyway, this scene, after he flies and he lands, I think it is definitely, he's not dead, he didn't kill himself then, because then you have a scene with the cab driver following Riggin into the theater and asking for his cab fare. Why would somebody dream that? Why would that be why would anybody dream that? Anything that specific? So, why would that be in his heaven or his hell? So, that's why I don't believe that theory. So, he heads back to the theater, and then on opening night, he uses a real loaded gun in the final scene in which the character kills himself. I don't exist. And then he shoots his nose off on stage. He then earns a standing ovation from all but Tabitha, who leaves during the applause. In the hospital, Jake tells Reagan that Tabitha gave the play a rave review. That's where you get the title, The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, which is the title of the review on the newspaper. dubbing a suicide attempt super realism, a new form of method acting, and then after Samantha visits Riggin, he dismisses Birdman, and because Birdman, he just basically Birdman is now sitting in the toilet, not being annoying and shutting up. And then after seeing birds outside, he climbs onto the window ledge. When Samantha returns, Riggin has disappeared. She then looks down the street, she looks up at the sky, and smiles. And then the ending's up to interpretation, which I'm kind of frustrated with, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, my interpretation is this. He's not dead. He didn't kill himself. That would completely destroy the whole point of the film, in my opinion. You're not going to gain self-respect by killing yourself. So I think what I interpret it is this way. He didn't really jump out the window. He didn't really fly around. I interpreted it as that was him flying again. That was and Emma Stone's reaction was seeing her father flying again. He got his self-respect, and now he's flying again, and his career is back on track. That's how I interpreted it, and that's how I'm going to interpret it. If it ended with him dying, and that's the interpretation people have, and this is his heaven or hell, I hate that idea because I hate fucking endings like that. It reminds me of stupid shit like in Cemetery Man, where everything happened inside of a fucking snow globe. So that's not how I'm interpreting it. If this ending is up to my interpretation, I sure as hell am not interpreting it like that because I hate endings like that. And I think it would completely defeat the purpose of the film, in my opinion. If you interpret the ending like that he's dead, he killed himself, he shot himself on stage, and this is all in his head, and some dream, or his representation of heaven or hell, then that's up to you. You can interpret it that way if you want to, but I'm interpreting it as he didn't really fly away, but it's his career. He's flying again. He's back on top. He's resurrected his career. He's gotten what he wanted. And he got that by gaining self-respect, by doing of all things, trying to kill himself on stage, but finally he realized that, okay, I'm worth something. My family loves me. There's something I can keep on doing that. I can be somebody other than Birdman. So I thought that was what the film was trying to do. That's my interpretation. It doesn't mean it's wrong, because there is no true ending to this film. It's up to interpretation, which is one thing that I wish maybe the film would have just had a true ending. You've been artistic and done these artistic choices throughout the whole film. That's cool. That's all well and good. It didn't really need to have an ending that is that open-ended and that like, huh, what? But I can deal with it, but it knocks down the film a little bit for me. A little bit. Just a little bit. I didn't mean to go on this long about the movie, but there's a lot to talk about. So, anyway, I really don't know what to say about Birdman. Talk your ears off about the film. Except if I was going to rate it out of 5 stars, I'm going to give 4.5 out of 5. I'd probably put this in my top 5 my favorite films of 2014. And, yeah, it was not a disappointment. So this is my honest opinion on the film. If I wasn't being honest about it, I wouldn't talk about the film for almost an hour. If I really like a movie, this is the kind. Well, I know I can rant on a movie for almost an hour too, so that's not really saying much. But either way, I liked it. I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was an excellent film. I could have used a better ending, but overall, I'm okay with it because at least I can interpret the ending the way I want it to be, way I want it to end, and at least I can do that. So, anyway, yeah, great performances, great cinematography, great directing. I thought it was pretty clever screenplay. Is the film for everybody? No, but if it sounds interesting to you and if you're a big Michael Keaton fan, I'd recommend you give it at least one watch. And if you end up liking it, cool. If you end up thinking it sucks, that's cool too. But um, I'm definitely glad I have this on Blu-ray, and it's a definitely worthy addition to my collection. And I definitely have to say it's the best. It's the best performance I've ever seen in Michael Keaton's career, and that's saying a lot because he's a very impressive actor, right? Anyway, so anyway, yeah, thank you for watching my review of Birdman, and I will see you guys later. See ya.